Welcome back to the lecture series on British history or the history of England. Today we are going to discuss England under the Angevins or England under the Plantagenets rulers. England under the Angevins or the Plantagenets rulers from 1154 to 1485. Remember 1154 to 1485. The Angevins or Plantagenet Empire was established by Henry II. The Angevin or Plantagenet Empire was established by Henry II. The Angevins were a royal house of French origin that ruled England in the 12th and early 13th centuries. The Angevins were a royal house of French origin that ruled England in the 12th and early 13th centuries. They had two branches, the Yorks and the Lancaster. The Angevins had two branches, the York and the Lancaster. The name Plantagenet was given to the family as Geoffrey used to wear a sprig of broom, that means the Janet plant, in his cap. So Janet means broom. The name Plantagenet was given to the family as Geoffrey used to wear a sprig of the broom, that means Janet plant, in his cap. The family is also known by the name of Angevins, which means from Ancha, that means a place in France. The family is also known by the name of Angevins, which means from Ancha, a place in France. Henry II brought order among the rebellious barons and strengthened kingship. Henry II brought order among the rebellious barons and strengthened kingship. Henry II wanted to control the Roman Catholic Church in England, which led to the bitter and well-known conflict between Henry II and Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury. Henry II wanted to control the Roman Catholic Church in England, which led to the bitter and well-known conflict between Henry II and Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury. Henry II's successor, Richard I, is remembered as Richard the Lion-Hearted. Henry II's successor, Richard I, is remembered as Richard the Lion-Hearted. After he died, his brother John ruled over England. After the death of Richard the Lion-Hearted, his brother John ruled over England. In order to reduce John's power, the barons and the leaders of the church drew up a document known as the Magna Carta or the Great Charter in 1215 and forced him to sign it. In order to reduce John's power, the barons and the leaders of the church drew up a document known as the Magna Carta or the Great Charter in 1215 and forced John to sign it. The Magna Carta said the idea that the king was not above the law. The Magna Carta said the idea that the king was not above the law. After John, his son Henry III ascended the throne. After John, his son Henry III ascended the throne. After Henry III's death, Edward I came to power. After Henry III's death, Edward I came to power. His son Edward II ruled after Edward I. After Edward I, his son Edward II ruled. Edward III, who was the son of Edward II and Isabella, daughter of the French King Philip, claimed the throne of France. When Edward III came to power, Edward III was the son of Edward II and Isabella of France, that means who was the daughter of the French King Philip. So Edward III claimed the throne of France. This led to the 100 Years' War. This led to the 100 Years' War. After Edward III, Richard II came to power. After Edward III, Richard II came to power. After Richard II, Henry IV was crowned as the next ruler. After Richard II, Henry IV was crowned as the next ruler. Henry IV did not pay much attention to the 100 Years' War. Henry IV, when he came to power, did not pay much attention to the 100 Years' War. But Henry IV's son, Henry V, revived the 100 Years' War. But Henry IV's son, Henry V, revived the 100 Years' War. During Henry VI's reign, the Duke of York, who was a descendant of Edward III, claimed the English throne. During Henry VI's reign, the Duke of York, who was a descendant of Edward III, claimed the English throne. This led to a civil war between the two houses of York and Lancaster, and this war is known as the Wars of the Roses. This led to a civil war between the two houses of York and Lancaster, known as the Wars of the Roses. The wars lasted from 1455 to 1485. The Wars of the Roses lasted from 1455 to 1485. In 1461, Henry VI was defeated by Edward IV of York. In 1461, Henry VI was defeated by Edward IV of York. After Edward IV died, his cruel brother Richard III imprisoned the minor sons of Edward and proclaimed himself king. After Edward IV died, his cruel brother Richard III imprisoned the minor sons of Edward and proclaimed himself king. But Henry VII, a member of the Tudor family, was the heir to the House of Lancaster. But Henry VII was a member of the Tudor family, was the heir to the House of Lancaster. So Henry VII defeated Richard and became England's ruler. So Henry VII defeated Richard and became England's ruler. The Wars of the Roses was brought to an end when Henry VII married Edward IV's daughter Elizabeth. The Wars of the Roses was brought to an end when Henry VII married Edward IV's daughter Elizabeth. Through this marriage, the houses of York and Lancaster were finally united. Through this marriage, the houses of York and Lancaster were finally united. So these are the main points under the topic England under the Angevins or the Plantagenets. So remember the dates. England under the Angevins or the Plantagenets 1154 to 1485. 1154 to 1485. Meet you in the next class with some other topics.